Hello people, I thought I'd continue what is now seeming to become a habit of me basically talking to myself in my car at the beach. For those of you who don't know, I've been diagnosed with both PTSD and ADHD. Now, for me, I was diagnosed with ADHD back in June, I think it was June 2025. It's now October 2025. Now, for me, nothing has changed really, as in I'm still me. So this is relating to the ADHD, or being told I've got ADHD. So I'm 43. I've not known anything else than my own mind. That doesn't make any sense, does it? What I'm trying to say is I've always had ADHD, as in my mind's always worked in a way that's symptomatic of people with ADHD. I wasn't aware, I know this sounds stupid, but having lots of conversations all happening at once in my mind at any one time, and then fucking music playing in the back, a lot of things I've heard, or just random sound bites, that I've no idea where they come from, going on in my head all day and all night, and in particular in the evening. I'm just thinking loads of stuff, things that I'm not saying that things that don't matter. They do matter to someone, but not necessarily me at that moment. I forgot where I was going with this. And when I say I've got no idea, no understanding whatsoever of what a normal person's mind is like, I mean that, as in I've got no metric to go by at all, no measure at all, because this is all I've ever known, and up until about a year ago I assumed everyone thought like this. So anyway, I think what I wanted to talk about is now I need to try and talk about this in a way that isn't going to get the video age restricted immediately. So I've been I sought a private prescription for medical C word, the same C word that if you haven't got a medical exemption for, you'll get arrested. It's a plant, it's green, and it stinks, right? So I've got a medical prescription for that. Now, it's only under license in the UK to be used for certain conditions, such as PTSD, ADHD. I think people who may be on the autistic spectrum, it might help them as well, with depression, anxiety, or a whole array of things. Now one of the conditions is to be prescribed this is you need to have at least tried, or you need to have tried at least one conventional, is that a word, conventional? One normal treatment or medication. So for me, my prescription was, they knew I had ADHD. It was the PTSD that I have, that I've tried lots of things for and hasn't really worked. Now, the title of this upload will be something along the lines of does medical C word help for ADHD? That's kind of what I want to talk about, which nearly 5 minutes in I've just basically told you what I'm going to talk about and my opinion. So I've had a medical exemption for it, or a I can't get my words out. I've got stammer by the way. Oh, I've been using a dry herb vaporizer to consume this plant for about 2 months, 3 months now, I think. And as far as I'm aware, I think anyway, it hasn't done me any harm outside of me spending lots of money on things, and not just the prescription itself, but I mean, you know, weed grinders and different vapes and I don't know, smell-proof boxes and containers and all this kind of nonsense. And that isn't really the fault of this type of medication as such. It's more a trait of someone with ADHD, and I'll do the same with pretty much everything. So I've learned a couple of years ago, I learned how to cook Indian food pretty well. I'm not a chef, I'm not a cook, by the way, I just obsessed over it. And even with that, I had to buy a shitload of different spice jars and different spices, and I was ordering specialist spices off eBay and Amazon, and going to these ethnic or international supermarkets, I think they call them, where they sell a lot of weird herbs and fucking spices and stuff. So the point I was trying to make here, I could have just bought a book, learned how to cook, and admittedly you need some spices to make certain things, but even with that, I wasn't just buying what I needed. I then got obsessed with different spices and herbs and what does what and what does this, and then I bought some kind of old school Indian pan thing. Now this is if you've got ADHD and you're watching me now, I'm hoping that you can see what I've just realised, that I'm supposed to be talking about weed and I've just gone on for about 2 minutes about different spices. So what I've basically done with this new medication is obsessed over different weed grinders and different pipes, and looking at different papers. Although you're not supposed to be smoking it anyway, I kind of got obsessed with that. Oh bloody hell, you know, pink papers and brown papers and glass tips and pre-rolled roaches and dabs. I don't even know what that is. That was never a thing. And then kind of looking at terpenes and different types of strains and all your indicas and sativas and hybrids and higher THC content and CBD stuff I don't need to know, but I can't help but get interested in stuff and obsessed by things. And all that's happened now really is I'm thankfully limited to how much plant material I can buy a month. Otherwise I'll be buying shitloads. Not because I'm using it loads, but I'd want to try this plant, I want to try something else, I want to try this, and looking at looking online to see what certain stoners think of a particular strain or plant or whatever. And so thankfully I'm limited to what I can get and how much of it I can get. But I've spent quite a lot of money on things that I probably don't need, or maybe I do need, but I've spent too much money on it, or I got sucked in by the hype and the you know, when you watch these things and influencers. So whilst they might be old school proper stoner people, when obviously you create a lot of content and you've got quite a large audience or subscribers, you then come to the attention of big corporations and companies trying to sell like their Santa Cruz grinders or vapes or whatever. So as you know, you then start to get sent things in the post, and whether there's a small fee, you get paid, or whether you just get to keep the item, whatever. So you do seem to get quite a lot of that now. I don't know what I'm talking about. Weed, right? Okay, whether it's helpful for me or not, I don't really take too much of it during the day, only because I kind of need to stay active and get stuff done, as in things. I need to do things to live and pay my rent. At night, I've always had issues going to bed at a regular time, so sometimes I don't go to bed till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm up again at 7:30 or 8 o'clock. My reasons for not being able to have like a normal sleeping pattern, I've got a cramp in my hand, kind of goes from, if I'm having a bad time with PTSD related stuff, it kind of scares me going to bed at night. Not scares in like that's probably the wrong word. I don't look forward to going to bed because it kind of feels like I know I'm going to have a bad night, as in I'm going to have nightmares or something. So because of that, I'll try and avoid sleeping the best I can, and obviously you can't do that for too many days. But I think moreover, I've always needed, I can't just lay down and close my eyes and fall asleep. I only seem to fall asleep when I'm completely exhausted, and to achieve that I have to like read or put my headphones in and listen to podcasts or watch endless YouTube videos, and I've got a fairly curious mind anyway, as most people with ADHD have, I think. And with the medication I take at night, which I use with one of like the dry herb vaporizers, some of the stuff I've got is pretty strong, and that's supposed to be the strain that I have it in the evening anyway, and that gets me baked. Not to the point necessarily where I fall asleep, but my mind continues to be really curious about things. But I think what the weed does, it almost like it unlocks parts of my mind. It unlocks thoughts that I genuinely haven't thought for 30 odd years. Just some random thing from like my teenage years or my childhood, or a random toy that I had in the 80s, or things like that. Or I talk to Chat GPT pretty much every night. I know that probably sounds sad. I don't know if it's comforting or not, because it's so lifelike and realistic. It actually feels like you're talking to like a regular person, and you don't feel like an arsehole asking certain things, or you don't expect any comeback for asking like something odd or weird. And some of the things, I'm not blowing my own trumpet here or anything, but some of the things I think about at night and ask Chat GPT about. Now, I admit or I kind of understand that there's these AIs are programmed to have some level or display some flattery towards the person who's asking things, obviously to I would imagine anyway, to encourage further engagement with it, so you become reliant on Chat GPT or AI in general. And obviously if the AI makes you feel like a prick for asking things, or it's all judgmental, then you probably won't use that AI, will you? But some of the things that I ask, the next morning when I look at the thing, I think actually that's a pretty intelligent thing to be asking, or that's how, I don't know how the fuck I think these things up, but often the reply I get, you get like this standard, oh, that's a really sharp observation, Sam, all that kind of stuff. But then it transpires that what I ask, or what I've asked, I should say, has been asked by, you know, like some like top level scientists and psychologists and historians and things like this, and it's things that I never learnt about at school, as in I'd never learnt about, or was never presented with an opposing argument for something, or with like the science and physics and chemistry and space stuff, you know, that you're very limited to what you learn at school. I was always academically quite smart at school, but I used to get bored really easy, you know, and just fuck about. So it's like, you know, if the teacher, like the science teacher, was kind of explaining something, and I know it's like an hour long, you have to be there, I'd kind of, in general, would understand what the concept was within a few minutes, and then for the other 57 minutes I'd just be fucking about, because I'd be bored. It's like I'm not saying I'm not super smart or anything, but in general I kind of pick things up fairly reasonably fast. Wish I could pick up how to speak without fucking stammering fast as well, but you know, I've not always had this, by the way. It's only been like the last few years really. I was going, so yeah, so what weed does for me, I think it helps me sleep, or at least I haven't had any nightmares since being on weed. Now I understand, or I think that consuming weed, it does something with your sleep pattern, so don't you have less REM sleep, and I think REM sleep is where most of your dreaming takes place, in REM sleep, I think. So I guess maybe the nightmares that I have or still have, I don't know, whether that only occurs during the REM sleep, and because I'm taking weed it reduces the window of opportunity, so to speak, for the nightmares to take place. I don't know, but I quite like how the weed makes my mind work. I know that sounds odd, because I've just told you I keep thinking like loads of random things at night, but it's kind of like it's the content, it's what I'm thinking about, and it's things that really interest me, and I don't seem to have a problem with being interested in things, if I'm honest. If anything, I'm interested in things too much, but I'm enjoying thinking. So it's almost like it's expanding my mind a bit to see things in a different way, or think about different things, or so I'm quite enjoying that. I had one moment, I think when I first started it, I can't remember what strain it was I used or what vape it was I used, but my mind went quiet and it was incredible. I don't quite know. It kind of felt like I was standing in an empty sports hall, you know, like an exam hall that, you know, they high schools would use. You know, they use like the sports hall, don't they, to do the exams, and there's fucking no one in there and it's just quiet. That's how my mind felt, and it was so bizarre. And from my understanding, that's what a regular person's mind feels like, unless they're actively thinking about something. And that blows my mind. That does. That's what normal people feel like. Now, whether, I mean, I'm a long way off still, having my the ADHD medication appointment, so I'm not on any meds at all for ADHD, as in no standard meds anyway. So I think what I may be prescribed is, from understanding, some kind of like amphetamine of some kind, which apparently makes me focused. But I'll be interested with that to see whether that quietens my mind. But I don't know. It'll be so. I said I've got no understanding whatsoever of what a normal person's mind must be like. But I don't know how I'm going to feel, if I'm honest, that when I have this meeting for my ADHD meds, if they work how I understand them to work, and they quieten my mind down, and it just turns it back into like a normal person's mind, I think that will feel pretty weird for me, and I'm not entirely sure whether I'm going to like it. Because I can't, if other people's minds are quiet unless they're actively thinking something, or they're being asked something and they're trying to create a response, then to me that must just be boring. I don't, it's like how I imagine other people, how their minds must be working. It's like they're just like they just walk around and there's nothing going on, as in their minds are completely empty. And I think I don't know, I'm just talking shit now, but back on to what I was supposed to be talking about, and I don't think I've really mentioned anything about it, have I? But whether weed helps with ADHD, my conclusion thus far is it doesn't appear to be doing any harm. It does seem to help me sleep, I think, and it's certainly reduced nightmares, which I know that's not an ADHD thing, but for me personally, it's reduced nightmares, and I suppose I get some level of entertainment from myself. And I don't mean that in like I just like to get high or stoned, but I mean, I think I enjoy thinking things and finding out the reason why something is, and it certainly has opened my mind to asking more stuff. Now, if I didn't have Chat GPT, then admittedly that would probably be an issue, because I'd be having all these things that I desperately needed to know immediately and no way of finding it out. I just have to do endless searches on like the internet, wouldn't I? But what I also find myself doing as well, and again, I don't know if this is ADHD or me being stoned in the evening or not, I don't know, because I don't really use chat. I'm going to have to stop saying that. I don't keep using Chat GPT much during the day, because I'm always having to do, I don't have the opportunity to sit down for too long, which you might think, I've been rattling for about 25 minutes now. You probably think I've got all the time in the world. I haven't. But I also like to try and not wind AI up, but I always like to so I anticipate what Chat GPT's response would be to like a statement or a question, and I would bait it into saying something, and I've already thought ahead what my response is going to be, and I like to trick, if you like, AI into admitting that they've made a mistake, or there's a falsehood, or admit they're being programmed in like a certain way, just for a laugh. And I kind of like the argument. I mean, as you can probably tell, I'm not much of a speaker, and that's not down to me, having learning problems or being retarded or anything. It's my stammer, and unfortunately my stammer it causes me to either avoid saying the most apt words, the most suitable words in a sentence. Sometimes I'll avoid saying the obvious choice because I know I can't make that sound at that present time, so I'll try and circumvent that by using another word. Or sometimes I'll try and make out as if I've forgotten what I was going to say, which ironically most of the time I do forget what I'm going to say. But if I've got myself into a mess and I can foresee no way out of it, as in I can't think of any substitute words, I'll then try and pretend what I was going to say and then restart the sentence. But if I have to write assignments or essays or emails or argue the task with Chat GPT, I can actually sound quite smart. I know it makes me sound like I'm being arrogant and stuff. I don't mean to be. I think. I mean, when I did my university course, I think some of the lecturers were quite surprised, because I think maybe how I look or sound, I'm aware that I mumble quite a lot as well. I think I must sound like a moron, but then when I actually write things down where my speech can't affect what I write, I actually sound quite smart. I don't know why I'm talking like this now. Chat GPT, yeah. So I like to bait it into a response, and then challenge that response and further my argument, and then actually get it to not change its opinion, but be more open with the answers. And it could be on anything. Like, I think a night or two ago now, I'm obviously aware and I hold the same opinion as I would hope most people, that Hitler was a evil person, right? I understand that, and most people, I would hope, understands that as well. However, I am of the belief that not everyone is 100% evil, and not every good person is 100% good. So I made a statement, cramp in my hand, what's the hang on a tick. I thought I'd would bait Chat GPT into a response and see how it awkwardly, or how it'd answer a fairly awkward fact, if you like. So I put down as a statement rather than a question, saying Hitler was really kind to animals, and it is a factual thing. He didn't eat meat because he thought eating meat was cruel. I mean, he had like a German Shepherd dog that he loved. He seemed to be quite kind and thoughtful towards animals, which is a bizarre thing in itself, isn't it? You think what he was responsible for. So Chat GPT responded as I would expect, saying, well, yes, that's strictly true. However, Hitler was responsible for, I don't know, it was 6.5 million Jews or something, 5.5, I can't remember. And obviously, Romers and retards and the disabled and I don't know, non-Aryan people, leftists, communists, and everyone else. And so I said, well, thanks for that, but that wasn't what I was asking. I just said, was Hitler really kind to animals? And it obviously responded again saying, oh, well, that may have been the case, but you can't mention that he was responsible, he's the architect of this final solution and Third Reich and all that kind of stuff. So I then went off on one saying, well, yeah, I kind of understand that, but I kind of went on to, I admitted why I had asked that, and and obviously ChatGPT kind of knew that's from my behaviour and things I've asked like in the past, that's the kind of thing that I like to do. And it explained the reason why it does that. It's got these safeguarding things that's been programmed with, and you know, so it wants to avoid anything, any kind of anything other than portraying Nazis and Hitler in like a bad light, which obviously I can understand why, but that wasn't like my point really. And I then argued, well, Hitler himself, he wasn't responsible for, you know, murdering 6.5 million. If I've got that wrong, it's because I haven't looked up my facts, by the way, so I hope it's not more. I know, but I am being as respectful as I hope I'm being anyway, with regards to this. But so I was kind of arguing the point, well, that Hitler, whilst he was obviously a dreadfully evil person, it wasn't just him who did this. This is like most of Germany did this. So you can't have something like that, quote unquote, final solution as far as he was concerned. That can't happen. That can't go underway without turning people into monsters, as in regular normal people into monsters. So you can't achieve something like that. And now, which are the notes here, but there's I forgot what psychologist it was, social psychologist, I think, said about the stages of extremism or racism, I can't remember, and it starts off with I think it's avoidance, and then anti-locution, and indirect discrimination, direct discrimination, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, the first step to all of this would be to people would start to avoid certain groups. So I suppose in this country you could look at now I kind of feel for like Irish travellers. I mean, I'm not an Irish traveller, I haven't got any background in that, but I feel quite bad for like the Irish travellers, because it's a similar kind of thing that's been employed or used against them, and like people will try and avoid Irish travellers, and then there's the anti-locution, so people get, you know, people think that they can get away with calling that particular group, you know, I don't even want to say the words, but you know, words that you wouldn't say to the face, but that way. So the argument also with ChatGPT was it wasn't just Hitler, you know, there was hundreds of thousands of people all got involved, and in my opinion, when I say all Hitler did, I don't mean this in that, you know, he is a nice bloke, because obviously he wasn't, but what Hitler did, I should say, was enabled people to bring out their inner monster. And unfortunately, no matter how people try and make out as if they're all good and, you know, they're a nice person, you don't know that. You don't know. You don't know what you could do, and you could kind of give that example of a mother who goes to church every Sunday, you know, works at a children's nursery or something like that. If she had to protect a child from an attack, she could kill someone, as in, you know, people can go really dark. And obviously what Hitler did was like a step-by-step way, turned regular people, normal people, you know, greengrocers and bakers and school teachers and police officers and nurses into monsters. And I kind of supported the argument with like the Stanley Milgram experiment, which I think was in the 50s, I think, or 60s, 50s, I think, in the United States, where Milgram, and I don't even know what I'm talking about here, So if you don't know what the Stanley Milgram experiment is, have a quick search of it on and learn about that. It's something I learned about years ago. But what he basically did was he proved how, excuse me, even normal bog standard Americans who, despite already being furnished with all the knowledge of what happened, you know, before, during and after World War II with the Holocaust and the concentration camps and people being executed, Milgram got random people off the street and proved that the vast majority of them would do inhumane, monstrous things to innocent people because someone who had a perceived authority over them told them to do it. And that's exactly what happened in Nazi Germany. People behaved like monsters to other people because they thought it was okay. They'd been told by, let's say, like the local police chief that you had to inform on any Jews in your neighbourhood, and you're not allowed to go to Jewish shops. You know, you petrol bomb the shops, and you know it's fine. You know they're scum and they're this and they're that or whatever. A bit like in the UK in COVID-19 during that. Look how quickly people would snitch on other family members or neighbours that they weren't adhering to this 2 metre apart thing, or they were going to the park with 3 people and not 2, or whatever it might be. So I think deep down, no matter what you think of yourself, everyone's capable of being an arsehole, and that's the argument I was putting out to chat GPT, and it kind of was supporting like my argument, kind of, you know, saying, oh yeah, that's a really sharp observation, something, you know, all that kind of stuff. I have no idea where I'm going with this. I think fuck me. Yeah, so taking weed in the evening for ADHD, it doesn't really quieten down your mind. It just makes you think even more bizarre thoughts. It does seem to help me sleep, as in if I get not proper hammered on it, I will fall asleep a lot sooner than what I would do without it. But it does make you eat shitloads as well, which isn't a good thing. Now there's oils out there, sublingual oils you can use. This is if you get a medical prescription. So there's oils out there, there's little kind of Haribo kind of sweets, vape cartridges, and obviously the herbal flower, which you're only allowed to vape. You're not allowed to smoke it or eat it or do anything else with it. Whether oils will help me during the day, I could try and use those, but I suppose it's I know it helps individuals, as in it can help one individual and it might help another in the same way, but in general it certainly isn't doing any harm ADHD wise. So yeah, just give it a go. I've basically been talking I've been talking for 40 minutes and I've no idea what I've been talking about. I had it all planned out in my head when I started this, what I was going to say, and I don't think I've touched upon anything. I've gone from talking about medical use ADHD. I think I spoke about spices, talking about Hitler. Fuck me, talking about Hitler. This, if you've watched this, I might actually change it to, yeah, you know what, I won't. I'll just upload it how it is. I don't edit stuff, largely because I can't be asked. But if anything, even though I basically haven't talked about what I wanted to talk about, I'm probably going to upload this as an illustration of just how bad ADHD people are at delivering a concise message or video on something that they actually wanted to talk about, and instead they've just been talking for 40 odd minutes about shit. So on that note, I'm going to go and treat myself to a vape. This vape, not cannabis one. Thanks for watching.